For
Morning,
those of
Chuck.
you who don't know me,
Good
uh,
morning.
I was chaplain at the hospital for many years, and I'm currently chair of the Community Services Board for the county.
Oh, cool.
And I know that good-looking guy right underneath me here. Hi, Sal.
He's muted.
Sounds like you're muted, Sal.
Yeah.
I don't see or hear Sal.
I saw him a moment ago.
I see him. He looks confused.
Here we go.
There you are.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, Sal.
Good morning.
Morning, Sal.
Hey, Gary.
Good morning, Sal.
Good morning.
Oksana here.
Yes. Doug.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, Doug.
Hey,
Good morning,
Doug.
Doug.
Hello, Doug.
Sorry about that, you guys. I'm having technical difficulties everywhere this morning.
Oh, dear.
My town laptop decided it was the perfect time to do an update just as I was turning it on. So
Oh,
it was, and then just sitting there running and running and running and running, then stopped. So anyway, so how's everybody this morning?
Good.
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 Good. I was just looking to see who we had with us here this morning. And I love the cuckoo clock in the background. So
yeah, that's my cuckoo clock.
nice. Very nice. Very nice. So, Eric, I don't know if you already started or not
I
here.
was waiting for you to call in.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. You guys, I wanted to touch base with you, and it's been a while since I've had a chance just to chat with you guys and stuff. So I wanted to do that, talk to you guys, and then we were scheduled today. Sarah's off this week. Sarah's actually moving this week, so she won't be able to join us. But we were scheduled to talk about Middle Cheshire Road, so I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to just take a moment and talk about all of the different groups that you belong to, all the different organizations, and kind of where things are at, kind of where we go from here, and just generally discussion today for CIC. So, Eric, do you want to give us a update kind of on the Middle Cheshire Road, where things are at right now, and kind of what's going on with that, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. I'm going to try to join here. So when did we have our meeting? We had our meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where Bergman joined us, and they kind of went over the existing conditions was the main goal of this meeting anyways. With the existing conditions, there wasn't too much, and please, anybody who was at this meeting, feel free to jump in and add your thoughts. There wasn't a ton that was particularly surprising. They went over the land use and zoning, which ones are farm parcels, protected, all that kinds of stuff that we are generally well aware of and people have known for quite a while. And then they got into the design of the road, which is nice, and I'm sure will be a good building block for them moving forward to say, how wide is the right of way? Where's the road sit in that? How wide are the different lanes that we have? Just to have an idea of what we have moving forward and the amount of space that we could potentially use if they are to put in sidewalks, bike lanes, multi-use path, whatever it is. I should say too, they broke down this corridor into 4 separate areas. There's kind of the Middle Cheshire Road up to Bristol Road, Bristol Street, which is the more multi-use health facilities area, and then down to from 5 and 20 down to Butler Road is the next area, more denser single family. And then from Butler down to Foster, I believe, was the next character area of the more suburban single family. And then south to the end of the corridor is the single family agricultural rural area. So they went through the existing conditions with us. And then the meeting ended with a really nice input survey interactive input survey thing that they ran. And so for each of the corridor character areas, they asked the board to provide their thoughts on sort of what might be an acceptable or what people foresee as an amenity for the different areas. So, you know, would you want to see sidewalks down on the area from Foster Road south? Or like a shared multi-use trail, bike lanes, or even further, you know, would you want to see benches, lighting, trash cans, stuff like that? And it allowed them to survey the group to see, you know, what people were interested in. I don't have the results of that, but I would say I don't think it was particularly shocking. And again, anybody correct me. I don't recall there being, you know, a lot of people wanting sidewalks down on the more agricultural rural area. And then as you get more into the denser area to the northern part of the corridor, people were more interested in having those different amenities, whether it be lighting, benches, sidewalks. So it was a good opportunity for them to gather input from the board moving forward, sharing with us the existing conditions that they were able to get and consolidate. And if anybody wants a copy of that, we do have their draft existing conditions report. It was a nice start, and then I don't recall when our next meeting will be, but probably be next month if I recall.
Eric, were the amenities, the benches, those types of things primarily like in the city area near the hospital, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that was more in that corridor area. There might have been, it certainly got more support in that area and then kind of tapered off towards the southern end of the corridor. There might have been, and I can't recall exactly, in that more in between Butler and 5 and 20, some of those amenities as far as benches and lighting and whatnot.
Personally, I'd be interested in a copy of that, seeing how I live on Middle Cheshire Road.
Okay.
Dick McCaughey.
Okay, what's your email, Dick?
R. McCaughey, McCaughey, R. McCaughey 63 at Gmail.
Eric, it's on the email that I sent out yesterday too.
Oh, okay.
So you can get it from there. But so that Dick, just so you know, that that whole study is, you know, there's still plenty of time to weigh in on things on that, and there'll be public hearings and a whole variety of things. That's still
Sure.
in the early stages of everything they're looking at from Middle Cheshire Road. Eric, was there anything specific? Was there like a you know, in some of the other studies, we've had roads that have kind of defined the certain benchmarks of the different areas where things are going to go. So I would assume the 5 and 20 intersection north up to the hammocks is kind of one that you would look more of the traditional city streetscapes and those types of things. And then maybe from that 5 and 20 intersection south to, I don't know what, Weifels, or I mean, are you guys having those types of conversations? I just wasn't in that meeting.
Yeah, I want to, just going to pull it up on my other computer real quick here.
And Gary, while he's doing that, was there anything from Complete Streets about that area other than, I think generally from the Complete Streets team back in the day, it was that there should be some sort of pathway for multi-purpose use, right, for that area?
That's correct. To finish the pathway that we have at the present time that ends roughly at West Ridge, and to go down to meet the city.
From where, Gary?
From West Ridge, where it basically stops the pathway now. Our thought at the time was on the Complete Streets before we even put in for the study for Middle Cheshire too much, is that that would something the Complete Streets wanted to have it completed to go through to at least Perry Street.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So yeah,
And then Eric, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, they broke down the areas by 5 and 20 north to, I mean, the image that they use has kind of a bubble. It actually goes all the way up to West Avenue. Obviously, there's no real connection directly from Middle Cheshire to West Ave. but that northern part of the area is the health services and office space area. From 5 and 20 down to Butler Road is the multi-family residential and commercial service area, because they identified the churches, the Ferris Hills being right there, and there's the villas there as well. And then in between Foster and Butler Road, actually, you know what? It's not Butler that's the dividing line. It's Westridge Run. So from Foster to Westridge Run is a single family residential corridor. And then again, Foster south down to kind of the end of Wells Curtis, where it intersects with County Road 16, is that single family residential and agricultural corridor. And so they broke it down by that. And then in the existing conditions, they do break down within each of those corridors, you know, what is there today, both land use wise, and then the characteristics of the actual road space that might be usable for the different amenities or infrastructure, bike lanes, shared use path.
This, just so everybody in particular the CIC is aware, this is one of the few projects relative to grants that I think is going to keep moving forward for 2020. Most of the state-related grants are questionable or likely, or we've already started hearing are not going to happen. But this one in particular is a federal grant that comes to the Genesee Transportation Council. And so the money has already been essentially distributed to GTC. GTC is administering the whole thing for us. We actually paid our contribution, our portion last year in 2019. So this is one of the few projects that I would say definitely from everything I see and hear still has a green light to keep moving forward. So this might be an area for the CIC to kind of put additional focus and emphasis as some of the other projects maybe get put on pause for a little bit because of funding reasons, whereas this one I think can keep moving forward. So it's definitely something I think we want to pay attention to and maybe have some additional conversations about and have some input on, and maybe we can help plan to shape the future of that corridor where some of the other stuff may have to get put on pause, like I said.
Is the WIA grant in jeopardy?
That's a great question, Tom. And the WIA grant is for the big water project. We have done our best to figure out and ask the question. We've asked EFC, we've asked everybody we can ask, and they keep telling us that we're going to get the $3 million. But I can also tell you that every time I turn around, I hear that if you don't already have the check, it's in jeopardy. And we don't have the $3 million check yet. So I think it is questionable, but we're doing our due diligence, and everything that we're hearing is that we should still be getting it, but we're proceeding cautiously.
That'd be a killer.
It would
Yeah,
be.
really.
It would be.
Yeah.
Anything on the Middle Cheshire Road before we move on to some of the other topics?
Doug, when it comes, Doug,
Yeah, go
Oksana
ahead,
here.
Oksana. Mhm.
When it comes to implementation for the northern area around the hospital, who is going to fund that? Is that funded by the town and the city, or just the city?
So with these UPWP grants, this Uniform Planning Work Program grants, these UPWP grants, which is what we got for this particular study for Middle Cheshire Road, there's another eligible grant that helps with some of the implementation type stuff that we should be eligible for. And so we can look at that. They strongly look at joint applications. They look at joint applications much stronger than they do single applications. So we can look at that when the time comes, but I think it's going to need to be either the town and city, or maybe even the LDC, just depending if there's much of an economic aspect relative, or if it's more like cosmetic transportation. It's probably going to need to be some sort of a joint application where the town and city look at it together. But keep in mind,
Okay.
there's a portion of that that's the town. There's a portion of that, obviously, that's the city. The dividing line between the town and the city, it's not the yellow line of the roadway. It gets a little goofy up there. Actually, the new sign for the Canandaigua Medical Group on the right-hand side of when you go across Middle Cheshire Road, is that west? Is that west? Street?
It's still
Does-
Middle Cheshire.
It's still Middle Cheshire until you get to the stop sign, right?
Right.
Yes. So on the
Yeah,
right-hand
that's
side,
west.
like where that sign is, that's actually in the town of Canandaigua. So there's
Weird.
a goofy border over there. So
Okay, thank you.
somebody else was going to ask questions. Sal, was that you? That was.
Doug, has any consideration at this point been given to the maintenance of this project? They would be looking at long stretches of snow removal, side, that type of thing. It just goes hand in hand.
It does, Sal, and that's something that we're going to have to, I'm sure, address as we go forward with this. And Gary, we've talked about that, and Tom, you and I have talked about that for years in terms of
Yeah.
what we should do with sidewalk maintenance and snow removal and those types of things. So don't have an answer for you today, Sal, on that,
Sure.
but it's definitely something that we've got to be talking about and having conversations about.
Great.
We did, just so you guys know, on that particular issue, it's not for Middle Cheshire Road, but we did send out a letter last fall. I sent a letter to all the businesses on Route 332 to let them know that we have a law on the books that requires them to maintain their sidewalks. There were a couple of snowstorms where code enforcement went out and said, hey, just so you know, we're serious about this. You've got to take care of your sidewalk and keep them shoveled in front of your business there on 332. There was a couple of the car dealerships in particular, because they have so much road frontage, said, that's a lot of work for us. But you know what? At the end of the day, they pretty much all did it. There were a few we had to get on a little bit. We never had to take a single one of those property owners to court, and they all pretty much complied. There were a few of them that never got done, but smaller parcels. But, it was a huge improvement versus what it was the year before. So,
Good.
anything else on Middle Cheshire Road? All right. What I'd like to do is kind of talk about some of our groups and our, I call them groups, but because it's a variety of boards and committees and everything else, but, and kind of what's going on. And Joyce, can I pick on you first with the Environmental Conservation Board?
Oh, sure.
Can we just kind of talk about what's going on, what your plans are, and obviously budget adjustments? And you and I had a chance to talk the other day, but there's not a lot of money left for the ECB, and kind of what your plans are from here and that kind of stuff.
Okay, it appears that our budget was cut quite dramatically, and we have about $1,200 left in the budget. Right now, we are working on, and it's in progress, the completion of the rain barrel workshop, which we started way back planning in January and February, and which we have a commitment to the Soil and Water Conservation District to provide the presentation, the rain barrels and all of that. All right, so we did have it's scheduled for April the 15th. That was canceled. So now what we've done in cooperation with Soil and Water is they are developing a video for us, how to put a rain barrel together and all of that kind of thing. It's going out to the participants. We had about 25 participants sign up for it, and they already paid. There was a $20 contribution. The contribution from the ECB was the $300 for Soil and Water for their part in developing this program. And then we partnered with the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association to provide a discount. It was originally $30, bring that cost down to $20 because there was an added cost this year from Soil and Water regarding the rain barrel putting it together. So our commitment, the ECB's commitment, financial commitment is probably going to be somewhere around $450 to $500. The rain barrels are now put together, and an email just went out yesterday 2 participants that they can come and pick their rain barrel up today and tomorrow. And with that, there is the link to the rain barrel workshop, or the video, as we call it. It'll be available on the website, the ECB webpage, where anybody can go and learn how to put together a rain barrel and know what to do with it. So the ECB also participated by some printed materials, which Kyle printed up for us before he left. And I delivered those this week, or last week, I guess, to Soil and Water, and those are attached to the rain barrel when the participants go there. And Soil and Water is also participating in the cost of that $10 discount cost, and also they have some printed materials that they're putting in. There's a combination of kind of lawn care, water conservation materials in the bag of handouts that we're giving. So we're moving forward. We had planned to do a water conservation program also, conservation in the home, and we've started that. Pat just wrote an article, and it was published on Friday in the newsletter, which talks about how to conserve water. And we're going to follow through with that in July with another newsletter article and just different sites, links to sites about water conservation, mainly in the home. And it'll be about water faucet use, how much you save if you have a water-controlled shower head, all those kinds of things. We did have a program for a fossil walk at Ononda Park with the kids programs. That's now been canceled. So we don't know exactly what we'll do with that, probably just an article. But the one thing that we are is our newest member, Gary Kokersberger, is working and wants to work on an invasive species program, and he would like to have us do some kind, or even bring in some kind of either a webinar or a video presentation for invasive species. So that probably happened around the middle of summer sometime. We don't know. We were just talking about it in our meeting this Thursday. We'll be discussing more of the details at the ECB meeting. And the other thing that's come up, and Chuck, this is something that has to do with your intent. Also, I read in your planning board minutes that you're interested in training for your board members, and the ECB is also interested in training its board members, and also including the ZBA. So there was a proposal that I talked to Chris Jensen about. That is going to be about he providing a hour-long training regarding MS4 and the implications of MS4 to the natural environments, especially around the lake shore and the RL. So I have talked with Chris, and he's willing to do it. All we have to do is just kind of put together some parameters and see what we can do as far as providing training credits for our own boards, because there's not a lot out there now, and we don't have the budget to send people to these trainings. So that's something I think that we could be working on, and I think that would be something
Sounds
that
good.
can do.
Sounds
actually.
good, Joyce. Thank you.
And
So I
Joyce,
knew
the
that-
plan is for those to be Zoom trainings or something along that lines,
Yeah,
right?
they'll all be online somehow, whether it will be a webinar or whether it would just be a video presentation that, that residents can, just find the link to and go to also. And also board members. Sometimes webinars, we need to make sure that the webinars are available to all the board members, given the time frames now for everybody's lives. So we're working on that. And Chuck, I'd like to work with you on that, and maybe we can get on the line or something after this in a couple of days. The ECB is going to be meeting on Thursday, and like I said, we'll be processing a lot of this stuff with them and figure out what in the world we really want to end up with here. But those are the plans so far.
Sure, let's talk then.
Okay, thanks.
Joyce?
Yeah.
Joyce, the Finger Lakes Institute already has all kinds of videos and webinars for the invasive species.
Yep, I know. And Gary is going to be moving with that. So we already, believe me, I've already linked him into PRISM
Okay.
and everything else. So, and the DEC, and he's got all that information, but we still have to make sure that the entire board, the ECB board, is involved in whatever, his plans are. And has connections to Cooperative Extension also, and they have all kinds of materials and, videos and things like that. So we just have to narrow it down to what, and also, this kind of thing could also be available to our boards for training credits. So we've got 2 possible workshops for our boards for credits. And I've got another one that I'm going to talk to the ECB about a little bit, on Thursday. So it's all in the works. So anybody has any ideas, let us know. This is new for us. And we have to get good at this, because this may be our, the way we conduct business into the future here, a little ways anyway.
Or at least a little
Are
bit.
you-
Thanks,
are you-
Joyce. Go ahead, Exxon.
Are you still doing the kids page?
The kids page. The kids page is the environmental committee, the recycling group. All right. In our contract with the consultant who was working on the recycling program and the one that has produced the brochure for us and everything, there is a component in there for a child's page under the recycling. So I talked with Caitlin to see if we couldn't enlarge the kids page, because we're concerned that families have things to do regarding, natural resource protection information and things like this. So what we decided was that instead of having the kids page, just a recycling page under that web page, that maybe we could have a standalone kids page, maybe like something like a kids club. And instead of just having recycling information and water and natural resource protection, maybe the history committee and also the ag committee would be willing to provide information from a kid's standpoint. We started to think about this because, we had that fossil walk that was going to be part of that. So, we have a lot of information for kids. So we've been gathering information. I have anyway, and others, and we've been putting it on the web page, on the ECB web page. But what we need to do in order to have a new web page is we have to have somebody develop it for us, and I guess that would be Sarah. So we haven't really, gone into depth with this with Sarah, but Caitlin's willing to work on it, but I don't know if she has the expertise to do that. So it's one of those programs now that's still in the talking stages, but I think it would be a really nice thing if we started to think about kids and families project.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds great.
It's certainly something we can talk about, Joyce. I mean, that honestly, it sounds like time, honestly, and money is what I would say. And so that might need to be a budget request. Speaking of budget requests, I think I copied the CIC yesterday. It's time to begin working on the 2021 budget. So there's information in terms of.
When you say budget request, Doug, what do you think? This is all in-house kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's still time. It's still time, and I've got limited staff, and then taking the staff away from a project to have them work on something like that. So we've got to be mindful of that, and think about that. I mean, we're running with a reduced staff. We forload for 4 staff members. So we've got to relook at everything. It's going to be difficult for us to take on new projects, I think, for a while.
Okay.
But let's see. Let's just take it one step at a time. It's a great idea, but let's take it one step at a time and see, what resources we have, what we can do, what we can't do, there's a lot of unknowns right now, obviously. And so that's why I say, let's just take it one step at a time.
Fine.
Doug,
Great.
Yes.
Doug, our
Yes.
one of our events committee members, Holly,
Mhm.
you know, she's an expert in like web pages and all kinds of computer stuff, and she loves producing children's things. So
Mhm.
maybe Joyce could connect with her and see if she would be willing to help.
Sure, that would be great. Any kind of volunteer help, obviously, that would be wonderful. The town website is actually pretty easy to use. There's a portal where you plug stuff in and everything. So, you know, if she's got some
Mhm.
experience, I'm sure she wouldn't have any trouble at all doing a
Okay.
page on it to update. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely look at stuff like that. We just need to be careful about staff timing. You know, for instance, like Sarah, you mentioned Sarah. Sarah is going to be remote probably for the foreseeable future. With childcare and the programs and stuff not available and just different things going on. You know, and those are some of the challenges that we're dealing with and working through with our staff as we come back online with the town hall now being open as of yesterday from 8 to 4. That's not to say that every single person is in the building. We actually even have still mandates from the governor's office in terms of the number of essential employees that we can have. We still have the requirement about trying to limit no in-person meetings. There's still a whole variety of these things where we've got to rethink the way that things have operated in the past, and we've got to continue to work and see, you know, what that means for the future and stuff. And some of that stuff, honestly, we just don't have answers for right now. We've got to just take it one step at a time.
Okay. Well,
Oksana?
Joyce, I'll connect you. I'll connect you with
Yeah.
Holly then.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds great.
Okay. Thank you, Oksana. Chuck, well, you're, well, since we were talking to you a second ago, anything that we should know relative to planning board or drainage?
Good morning, everyone. Well, the planning board continues to plug along with our meetings virtually, and they seem to be going well. And, we're able to keep people, applicants in the pipeline, and for the most part, due to the meetings not being that long and our agenda is relatively short, it's been manageable, so it's worked well that way. And I thank Eric for his guidance and working the command post in terms of getting the plans up and available during our meetings so that we can refer to them. Speaking of the plans, as our effort toward austerity for the town, we've gone completely digital in terms of the mailing out and the use of plans. The mailing had become a very expensive process, mailing plans and all that. So that's been negated by the plans and all the correspondence being now shown online. And that's working out for the most part. Sometimes it's a challenge reading the plans, but I think the board members are getting used to it. Right, Joyce?
Yeah.
But it works for the most part, and I think I haven't felt that my reviews have been compromised at all by not having a hard copy in front of me. So I think everybody's been acceptable to that. Regarding the Drainage Advisory Committee, we have suspended our meetings, given the current situation. Fortunately, there have not been any storms. I mean, that's all we need now. Firestorms and pestilence and plague. That would be just an added thing that we would need. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. There hasn't been any storms that have really affected us, and people are certainly have the opportunity to contact me or the committee or anyone that's involved with the Drainage Advisory Committee regarding any drainage issues that may come up. So that's pretty much it. So we're plugging along.
Great. Is everything working okay? I know we had talked about trying to limit some of the expenses for both the town and the general public, whether it's review by using code enforcement a little bit more, and Chris Jensen for review of some of the plans versus the non-commercial stuff versus MRB, and even limiting. And I know we've always kind of tried to limit the use of the attorney whenever possible, but is everything working okay from your perspective in terms of that?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so.
I can touch on that too. One of the benefits of doing it remotely is that the planning board always had at least some small charges that went into the town's budget line for like preparing the resolutions. But since all that stuff isn't, it's kind of just typed up and it doesn't need to be printed, distributed, anything like that, and it's only put online, the town hasn't faced any sort of charges from that. As far as the chargebacks, it seems like we're doing a pretty good job of reducing them. Finding ways to, it seems like one of the bigger charges is like chargebacks for being at the meeting. So obviously, Chris Nadler only joins us when we really kind of feel like it's appropriate. Otherwise, we'll give him a call at the meeting if we need his input on something. But it seems like we've done a pretty good job of limiting it, at least thus far.
Okay. All right. Great. Does anybody have any questions for Chuck and Eric about planning board or drainage? No. Eric, is there anything from a zoning board perspective that we should know about? What's kind of going on?
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, we've done the electronic referrals in the same way as in the planning board. It seems to be working well there. There doesn't appear to be any real difficulty with the changes from the in-person meetings to the meetings online. It seems to be going very smoothly. Same thing with Chris Nadler as far as, only joining us when it seems necessary. Certainly with like the smaller, simpler agendas, doesn't seem like it's kind of come up as an issue at all. Really probably the bigger thing is just getting them training. That's kind of always been an issue in the past. So just getting them to join us to do some online training.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Eric. There was mention a little bit ago of the history, and I think everybody's aware, but officially July 1st, Ray Henry is retiring as the town historian. So there is no specific person that is lined up to become the town historian. The position of town historian is an appointment by the town supervisor per New York state law. Whoever's maybe interested will be working with the town supervisor to make that appointment. Whether or not we fill that immediately or not, I don't know. There's been a few conversations, but Ray certainly has had a hand in approaching some folks and asking them if they're interested. And so far, primarily the feedback that I've gotten is that the people that he's talked to, they've decided that maybe that's not something that they really want to take on. So, I think that I don't have a lot of information to pass along at this point, but that's kind of where that's at. And then also additionally, some of the work that the history team was planning on this year is going to be put on pause due to the budget situation, and they were also planning to apply for a state grant, which my understanding has also been essentially canceled for this year due to the state budget cuts. So the history team is certainly one of those areas, and some of the history stuff is being impacted by the financial situation relative to the COVID-19 situation. So any questions on history before we move on? Oksana, I want to touch base on economic development with you and with the group. Everybody knows we created our LDC earlier this year, and the LDC is trying to work through a variety of different things. They've gotten a lot of their filings and those types of things done that they need to get done from a basic perspective. They have retained the services of Matt Horn and MRB Group to help keep things moving with the Local Development Corporation, the LDC. They're currently reviewing a proposal that would essentially be talking about helping businesses as they begin to reopen from this situation, and what they should expect, and in the new era of business and those sorts of things. I think those are some of the things the LDC is going to be looking at. And that might be something that we might be able to piggyback on from a town perspective, and look at a little bit more. I know that we've had, I'll give you an example. This past Saturday, there were 3 different locations in the town of Canandaigua where the lines of traffic participating in the event were so long that we had to have police involved to control them. One was Geneco Produce has started doing a drive-through produce thing. You've probably seen or heard about it, where I think it's $20. You get a box of produce, you pull up, they drop it in your vehicle, and you drive out. And the line of traffic at 11:30 on Saturday morning, I saw myself stretched into Geneco Produce, the green building, not the farm market building, but along 332. It went along the shoulder of 332, and state police were there directing traffic, wrapped around past Ace Hardware and all the way down past Stablegate on Canandaigua Farmington Town Line Road. It's
Oh my gosh.
it's been crazy, the turnout for doing things like that. There was also a drive-by zoo over at Stella's this past Saturday at the same exact time. We had to have 2 Ontario County Sheriff deputies directing traffic there and it was also there was a chicken barbecue there also. The line
Oh
of
my
traffic,
gosh.
the line of traffic went from Stella's out to Purdy Road, all the way down Purdy Road, and then extended down Brickyard Road, down past the mobile home park, down to the low point on Brickyard Road.
My
People
gosh.
waiting in line to pull into Stella's to drive past the animals and then get a chicken barbecue. And the third one that I mentioned that also happened on Saturday around 12:30 was a chicken barbecue that was in front of Joanne Fabrics, where the cars were lined up, were wrapped up Moran Road, and were actually stacked on 5 and 20, waiting to get down to the plaza for the chicken barbecue. So, but that's, we're seeing that here. We're also seeing that in other municipalities. I can tell you some of the other managers that I'm talking to, they're experiencing the same thing. There's such a pent-up demand for people to get out of the house and do something that they're willing to go sit in line. Actually, I was joking with Matt Horn yesterday because Matt was telling me that his wife actually participates every Saturday in the Geneco Produce drive-through. She drives over from Geneva. She sits in line for about an hour to get that $20 box of produce. And I said, how much gas does she burn sitting in line for an hour to get the $20 box of produce? But anyway, but it goes back to the point of, kudos to these businesses and stuff for being a little creative, but there is such a demand, and, okay, how are we going to start thinking about this, and how are these things going to start happening? So, Oksana, I don't know.
And do they all have to happen on the same day?
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. So it's it's interesting, but there certainly is a demand there. And with the LDC, I can tell you we've been talking to the city about, okay, what could be done when these restaurants start to open. They're going to have distancing in place. Could we allow some of the restaurants to have tables set up on the sidewalks? Maybe a little different in the town, because we've got a little bit more elbow room than some of the businesses do downtown in the city, but still, nonetheless, it's from an economic development perspective, it happens. The other thing I'll tell you is the LDC did a survey, and there's a new website that's been launched, Canandaigua Means Business. And in the survey, what we discovered is that there have been over 400 people have either been laid off or lost their jobs just in Canandaigua, city and town combination, through this. So there's been a real impact, loss of jobs, and people being furloughed through this project, or through this situation, But all right, Oksana, I'm talking a lot about economic development, but I want to throw it over to you. What is there, I guess, one of the things we still have to figure out is, how does the town's economic development team play into all this, and what can we do to support the efforts?
Well, Doug. We really haven't had an official meeting just about town economic development. What we have been working on is with Bergman on the form-based code for the uptown area. And the last meeting that we had with the committee, I think, Eric, if you recall, was it like 5 people that were on the Blue Jeans meeting? So, and the constraints of the budget, Bergman has decided that they're just going to work with Eric, Sarah, and myself working on the draft for form-based code, and then bring it to the CIC and the town board when it's, you know, in better shape. So that's still ongoing. And as far as we really have not heard anything from Kathy, who is our representative to the LDC. So I don't know. I guess we need to contact her, maybe Matt Horn, or I know you sent me an email with that other woman from MRB. So I right now I don't know.
Maybe we
you know,
can,
where we are with that.
All right. Maybe Oksana, you and I can work together and we can get something scheduled. And Andy Griffith is our other representative, also on the board. That's also something that I've also been watching. I think it's important that we pay attention to is what's happening with the real estate market as offices start to open and what's going on. That obviously the assessed value of the town of Canandaigua strongly impacts the budget and the tax rate. So that's
Right.
something that we need to be mindful of and pay attention to. But everything that I keep kind of hearing through the grapevine and paying attention to on the real estate side of things is that the real estate market still sounds like it's relatively strong. It certainly took a dip in February and March. April numbers were lower than last April, but it's still something that we I think need to be paying attention to. Obviously, mortgage tax, that'll be down, but mortgage tax revenue for the town. But hopefully the values stay up there. And everything that I keep hearing is that it's still a seller's market, that it has not flipped through this. And that was one of my concerns is that, you know, when it flips to a buyer's market, then you have more homes on the market than essentially what you have buyers for. And then the price drops and everything else. But everything that I keep hearing is it's still strong seller's market, that sellers are able to turn their homes very, very quickly. I'm still seeing that homes turning in the town of Canandaigua in 48, 72 hours from listing date. So, you know, maybe even if we don't get into, you know, I do think that Oksana, it would be good for us maybe to have a conversation with Matt and what we could be doing as a town to support the efforts of the LDC, Matt and Kathy and Andy, but maybe Andy could also talk to us about the real estate market and kind of some of the other things going on that we're seeing too, so.
And we talked about inviting Randy Farnsworth, you know, because of all the car dealerships and the issues that they're having because of the pandemic. Okay, so let me know when you're available and we can have a discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Oksana.
So I never heard about the Geneco drive-through.
Yeah.
When did that start?
It was just one day. It was Saturday.
Oh, so is it going to continue?
No, it was a one-time thing.
Oh, it was just a one-time thing. Well, I think maybe in July, Joyce and I can have a drive-through on Middle Cheshire, on Wells Curtis.
Oh, wait. Oh, you're talking about the produce thing. No, the produce.
Yeah, the produce.
The produce thing, I thought you were talking about the zoo thing, the drive-by zoo. That was
no. The produce.
The produce thing, it's my understanding, started almost 60 days ago and has been going on every single Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Never heard of it.
Yep.
Didn't see it in the Daily Messenger or haven't?
Yep.
Yeah, haven't.
Yep. So
Yeah.
Well, we heard about it because for Mother's Day, one of our daughters contacted them and to send her mother flowers, and we got a big box of produce along with the flowers and free delivery for $49 and something. It was on their website. I'll check later.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's great.
Huh.
What kind of
So
produce
how's
did
the
you
pro-
get, Gary?
how's the produce?
Yeah.
Well, the produce we got was so much that the majority of it went to my son and his family because he's got a bigger crowd than just Dottie and I.
Yeah.
But there was probably it was really nice produce. It was an abundance of it. It was a big size box that they had that it was in. But it was, also vegetables as well as fruit.
Wow, great.
Oh, nice.
But if you go on the website, if it's still there, it'll list all the things that they put in the box for you, along, like I said, with the flowers that you order and there's free delivery to your house.
Wow.
That's great.
Okay, thank you. Doug,
Yes.
if the events committee, obviously everything has been canceled. So we're not doing the Halloween at Onanda or the 4th of July parade or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, so much is unknown, obviously, with all that. I did see that yesterday the city is trying to find people that might be interested in a socially distant 4th of July parade. I'm not exactly sure what the details are of that, but I think they're trying to look for something or other like that. We did save, we in terms of parks and events, we did a movie night last year with parks, and I don't think Karen's on the line here, but
No, she isn't.
we had budgeted originally 2 movie nights and some other things for parks for this year. We had to cut a lot of that out of the budget. We did save a little bit of money to still try to put together maybe 1 movie night late in the summer, right before fall and kids go back to school. But everything is still questionable. I mean, we still have so many executive orders that are in place that really limit gatherings and those types of things that I don't know if that'll, if we'll actually be able to do that or not. But we do have some money to do something along that lines. Also, speaking of parks, just so everybody's aware, and you probably saw this in the newsletter, but the plan is hopefully on June 15th, that's the beginning of phase 3. That's when hotels, accommodations, those types of things are allowed to start to open back up. We do have a plan in place to essentially start to open our cabins up for rentals June 15th, as long as everything stays on track in terms of those dates. And then the other thing that we'll be looking at is the beaches. And I've been coordinating with the city of Canandaigua and the county so that basically the majority of our beaches on Canandaigua Lake all open at the same time. Basically what we're all being told is that the earliest that we'll be able to open is July 1st. So we are making our plans right now, working with the Department of Health. We're working with our lifeguards. We're working with our parks maintenance staff. There's all kinds of restrictions that we have to put in place even to be able to open our beaches. I can tell you that more than likely, we would like to open both beaches, but probably we'll just focus on Onanda because we're going to have so many restrictions in place, and there has to be distances between families that are on the beach if they don't have masks on. And then we're bringing in extra people to help monitor the situation on the beach so the lifeguards can focus on the water. And there's a whole series of restrictions that are going to be in place, it looks like, for the summer, if we even get to open July 1st. And if we don't get to open by July 1st, then, we may not even put lifeguards on the stands. Officially, the beaches are closed right now, but I can tell you we're also not telling people that they have to go get out of the water if they do get in the water, but officially the beaches are closed. So, that's kind of where that's at with our 2 beaches. And with Butler Road, I would say that there's a strong likelihood that that'll just remain closed because there's such small amount of space there anyway to begin with in terms of the grassy area at the water. And then with the restrictions that we have in place that we're being told that we have to do by the governor's office, that I just don't think there's going to be enough room for us to open that there. So that's kind of what that is in place for.
But you
now.
know, Doug,
Mhm.
but Butler, people are still going to swim there. They always do.
Mhm. Well, like I said, we're not running around, and this really goes for code enforcement also. And I've had a lot of conversations with code enforcement over the last couple of months. I mean, the governor's executive orders basically place all the mandates on the local municipalities to enforce, and specifically code enforcement. And so everything from going into a business to see if they have a reopening plan that's in place or not, and those types of things, we're not running around looking for problems. If we get a complaint, we'll go out and investigate it, but we're not going to go running around and trying to be the town of Canandaigua police and enforce all this stuff. Everybody's got to use their head. If we get a complaint and we've got to look into something, we will, but otherwise, just kind of take it one step at a time. Speaking of complaints, let me just mention this just so everybody's aware. I can't even tell you. I wish I had $1 for every complaint that we've had about the Canandaigua racetrack through this. But Land of Legends Speedway, County Road 10, the Canandaigua racetrack, officially, they, like Watkins Glen, have been okayed by the governor to begin running June the 1st. June 1st was yesterday, and they're not allowed to have fans, but as long as they're wearing their masks and everything, they can begin to operate. So I believe they have practice scheduled, I think tomorrow night, either tonight or tomorrow night, where they're planning to have a practice, and then I think their first race is this Saturday. So just so everybody's aware, so you'll be hearing the cars.
Okay, we'll be hearing.
You'll be hearing the cars.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And then the other thing in terms of parks, obviously we touched on recreation earlier. Recreation, all of our programs are canceled for the year, and really that was driven more by a lack of enrollment than anything, both for the town and city in the programs. We only had, I think it was 3 or 4 people had registered for all of our programs for this year. And for the town city joint program, the enrollment was 10% of what it normally is. So it just didn't make sense for us to pay the staff to keep these programs going for the limited number of kids that would be attending. And I think that's all being driven by people concerned about, how is social distancing going to work and everything else, and then people not knowing exactly what's going to happen. So it was just better for us to go ahead and, with the limited enrollment, call that off for this year, and allows us to focus on trying to get the parks open as much as we can, and we'll just kind of take it from there. Officially, the playgrounds, basketball courts, all that kind of stuff is all still closed in all of our parks right now per executive order. So, any questions on any of that stuff? Oh, the other thing I just want to mention about parks too is our park bench program, where people can make a contribution or donation and have a park bench dedicated. There's a little plaque that goes on the bench. You get to kind of pick what it is that you have on it. I think the cost is about $400. I don't remember the exact cost, but it's something right around there. I know that we have 2 benches already that have been purchased for that, and so that's something that Parks is working on there. So,
do we contact Samantha about those?
Yes.
About
Samantha's
the benches?
contact. Yes.
Okay.
Samantha's the contact for that. So, okay. All right. Anybody have questions on parks? It's 10 o'clock. I wanted to just touch base. Our 3 new project teams this year. We had the tree, the conservation team, and the gateway team. They were all being impacted, obviously, by the budget, but does anybody have anything on any of the teams that we want to just touch on and kind of talk about what's going on with those, if anything?
Well, the gateway signage, we really haven't done anything except for the very first meeting we had, which was what, April? I don't remember now either. But the committee chair has not been available, and I we don't want to step on their toes. So, but I will have a conversation with them because we can still, you know, look at the gateways, which we haven't done, and go on from there, and maybe start doing some planning for design on the signage.
Okay. All right. Joyce, you mentioned the tree earlier. Is there anything that we should know about that? I know we've got the grant is questionable. Actually, I think I heard the grant may not happen. I think is what Sarah told me.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. The tree committee hasn't met since our initial second time around, actually. We did have a chair of that committee, and that's Dennis Brewer. And so far, I haven't heard anything from that committee, so I really don't know. But a lot of the work that the committee was going to be developing was an inventory and maintenance plan, and that was kind of hoping that the grant would move us forward with that. I know there's some opportunities because we have a number of people who are actually arborists on the committee that we could probably move forward with some kind of an inventory. I don't know what that would look like, but there are resources out there that we can use, software resources and those kinds of things. And if we get moving, so I don't know, probably when Sarah gets back in, we probably need to just do some kind of a Zoom meeting to see where we are with that. That would be my recommendation anyway.
Okay. All right, great. And then the conservation team that I was leading, we haven't met either, but you know, the plan all along for that was bringing in Labella, and that got cut out of the budget. And I'm not, and when I talk about budget cuts, believe me, a lot of those recommendations, actually all of those recommendations for those budget cuts actually came from me to the town board. You know, I had to take a hard look at the budget. So that is not to blame the town board in any way, shape, or form, but you know, we had to, make some tough decisions, and with regard to the financial situation of the town, to try to protect the revenue that we do have, keep the tax rate flat at the $1.03 as much as possible, and it's the same thing that we're looking at as we move forward with the 2021 budget. So not knowing exactly where the revenue is going to shake out. You know, originally I had shared with you guys was budgeting for a 35% reduction in sales tax revenue. What I'm hearing now is that the sales tax is going to be about 30 to 32% less than what it would normally be. So I think our budget projections that we guessed on early on are very close to being accurate, with a 25% loss in mortgage tax, a 20% loss in state aid, a variety of other things. So many of our budget lines are taking a hit through this pandemic situation, and we, you know, the full outcome is still very much unknown. So any questions on anything that we touched on today, or anything else anybody have? I know we talked about a lot of different things today, just kind of wanted to do an update with everybody. Gary, you've been very quiet. Anything that you want to share with us from a town board perspective?
Not that I can think of. Like you
Right.
said, you know, the budget is certainly going to be, you know, the main thing that we're going to be discussing. And under the circumstances, it's going to be very lean.
Mm-hmm. It is for sure. It is for sure. All right.
And I did pull it up on the internet while we were talking. If you go to Stella's Flowers, you can check that out with that information that I gave you before, if you're interested. And I don't work for Stella.
All right.
I did
Thanks,
want to
Gary.
bring you an update on the county social service agencies, because they affect the people in the town. It's really inspiring with the virus, and together with the issue of revenue, all the different agencies of the county relative to mental health, substance abuse, and developmental disabilities are just doubling down and being innovative and creative and trying to put out the same level of services that they've been doing. We also have on the board Eileen Tiberio of DSS and Mary Beer of Public Health. And the efforts of our social service people throughout the county have just been heroic.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? All right.
Well, Doug, I have a question about the school budget. And I did contact one of the school board members, and I haven't heard back. And my question was the $71 million in capital improvements, or $61 million. What if they don't get the state aid like they're counting on? What happens to that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Oksana. And I'm not
mean,
even going to begin to guess, but the one thing I have heard from the governor himself is and I've heard this, I had a conversation yesterday with Pam Helming, last week I had a conversation with Brian Kolb, is that we're probably going to see across the board about a 20% reduction, school districts, counties, and towns, and villages, and cities, pretty much a 20% across the board reduction on anything that we get. So that's for the town, that's CHIPS money, that's extreme weather recovery money that we get from the state. The city of Canandaigua gets something called aid to municipalities that towns don't get. But across the board, 20% of that. So for that in particular, that impacts our highway department more than it does our general fund operations. But for CHIPS and extreme weather recovery, that's about $200,000. It's just over $200,000 for us. So, 20% loss, you're talking $40,000 approximately. But what we're doing just to mitigate that in the meantime is we've actually had our highway crews, we pretty much shut the town hall down. We had an order that we could only have 50% of our workforce working. So we pretty much shut the town hall down and had everybody working remotely, so that at 50%, we could pretty much keep our highway department operating. So we've got out and we've started doing some of the road work repairs. CHIPS is a reimbursement program. So we got out early to do the repairs so that we can send the reimbursement in early, so that hopefully we can get some of that money while the money's still there and available. So that's kind of what our strategy is, so that we can hopefully mitigate the loss as much as possible on the state side of things. But again, it remains to be seen. We don't know exactly how that'll play out, but I would think the school district's in a similar boat as us.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for joining me, and thank you all for the input and information. It's all good information, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks,
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a
See
good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Too.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.